Hello, Algebros. I know you have absolutely loved working with matrices, so I know you're going to love today's lesson. Possibly a hint of sarcasm, possibly not. You decide. So let's think back to our Algebra 1 days when we solved systems of equations. We had 3 different methods. We had graphing, substitution, or elimination. But what your Algebra 1 teacher didn't tell you was that there was a super easy way to find them using matrices. They probably didn't tell you about it because you weren't learning about matrices in Algebra 1, so. But you can go back and tell your Algebra 1 teacher and be like, aha, I learned an easier way to do systems without your help. If you happen to have me in Algebra 1, I already know. So, anyways, moving on. So here I have 2 equations. So let me just forewarn you, this video is all about the basic or the general formula for using matrices to solve systems. Our next video, we will actually go through an example with numbers so you can see it that way. But I just want you to have the general formula before we do that. So this is called Cramer's rule, which is, why it is titled that on this paper. There are a few things that I want you to notice before we jump straight into this. Notice that my equations over here are written in standard form, which means x and y are on the same side of the equal sign. Also, before we get too into it, I want you to notice that in both of these formulas over here, the denominator, or the bottom number, or the number that we're dividing by, is exactly the same. AD, AB, DE. I have a typo. And what we are going to be doing with those, what we just learned the other day, is how to find the determinant of a 2x2. So we will be finding the determinant of the numerator and the denominator. Well, Miss Bauer, where do all these letters come from and how do I know what goes where? Glad you asked. We're about to go over that. So we can see, let's do green. In the formula to find our x value, we see that we have the letters in here, C, B, F, and E. If we look over here to see where those letters came from, we can see that B and E are the coefficients on y. And we also have C and F. Notice that we don't have the coefficients of the x, which makes sense because that is what we are finding. Our x is already taken up over here, so we don't need to add in the coefficients of the x variable. Let's see if that remains true for the y. So if we're looking for the y value, you can see that we have A, C, D, and F. Well, A and D are the coefficients on the x variable, and C and F are what our 2 equations equal over here. So when we're looking for the y value, we want the other values in there. So we want the x and then the constants. So a good rule of thumb, if you will, something that you could easily interchange is if you wrote all of them exactly the same way to start. If we write them all the exact same way to start, you know, A, B, D, E, then we can go through and just replace the values that we need to replace. So what that looks like is when we are finding the x value, we already have this variable over here, so we don't need the coefficients on x. So A and D are going to be replaced. And we are going to replace them with C, or sorry, not C and D, C and F from here. And we can do the same thing with y. When we are finding y, we already have that y variable solved for, so we don't need these y coefficients in there. We're going to replace the y coefficients with C and F. So the y coefficients are B and E, so we're going to replace those with C and F. And as you can see now, these look exactly the same. Order does matter because we're going to end up subtracting those values when we find the determinant. So yes, order does matter. So that is why maybe this method, until you get comfortable with it, maybe this method is the best for you because you can write your x's and then your y's and then just replace your C and F with whatever value you are finding. So again, this might look super crazy, super complicated because it's all just a bunch of mumbo jumbo letters, but I really hope you take the time to write this down, and then when we go to our next example with actual numbers, you will be able to just plug those numbers in for the letters. All right, happy mathing as always. See you in my next video.